Good day, dear Wastelanders. Sanctuary Stonemason here, and welcome to part 3 of my How to Build guide for Outpost Zimonja. And if you haven't already, please check out parts 1 and 2 to see how we got here. I'll put the links in the description, and they should be on screen now. But click like, click subscribe, ring that notifications bell, and join me as we go wall crazy and block out the nasties that populate the Commonwealth. When last we built, we worked on the outer buildings that would form the foundations of the outpost walls, so today we're going to join those dots and build ourselves a wall that should deter even the most stubborn of super mutants. That obviously involves building the verticals, but also a whole lot of gun placements, barbed wire, and lookout points. So to finish this episode, we'll wire this baby up and give those guns some power. So eyes down, let's build ourselves a fortress. I'll open this episode with the sentiment that the main principle of building walls is simple. As you can see, stack some wall pieces, remember to keep variation in the selection to avoid repetition, and by using the pillar glitch, slowly make your way around the required areas and slide in your pieces in an aesthetically pleasing and functional way. But as an addendum to this premise, what became all too apparent as I waded through the hours of wall building footage is that watching me build the walls is as tedious as it is frustrating, and could literally span 2 hours of video even at this crazy playback speed. So I reckon the best thing to do is to cut to a funky little tutorial in a minute which covers all the aspects of what I've done and show you the finished product of the walls here, so we can crack on with something a bit more interesting. If anyone does want the willful torture of real-time wall building to watch, then please let me know in the comments section and I'll stick it up. But trust me, this is for the best. So enjoy watching me mess around with these little bits of junk wall, and we'll now cut to our tutorial. Cue Starlight and relaxing background music. So here we are at our little demo setup. I've built 2 very basic towers that we're going to connect with a walkway and a wall. Now the first thing to bear in mind here is that the 2 towers are randomly placed, so there's no easy way to snap between them, which is a good thing, as it would look shit if you did. So what we need to do is use our eyes and a wee little bit of the force to aim these steps so that our walkway heads in the general direction towards the other tower, as you can see me do here. Now, it's very unlikely that you'll get this right the first time of asking, so there's no point in shuffling between the floor pieces till you know you're right, as you should see me do here. But once you are happy with the angle, I would recommend randomizing the floor sections so you get a nice, realistic looking path. I think I'll be happy with this one, so what you'll see me do is delete them and do just that. Go, nice and random. Complete. So that's the first stage done. Then for a little final touch, I'll just snap in those stairs. Now you'll see, I'll go downstairs, you'll notice that they will stick through the ceiling, but that doesn't matter. So okay, we have ourselves a nice walkway. I'm going to add some pieces in here, because that's where our lookout tower will end up being. And then I'll add in a little bit of these grill-like floor pieces, just because that matches the other side, so we get some symmetry going. And this gives us the framework for what we'll do now, which is to add in the pillar support so it looks like it's a supported structure. I always start with the small pillar pieces first to give me a framework of how to get the other ones to fit, because as you get closer to the ground it can get fiddly, so it's nice to have a lot of space to get the snap to work properly. So once you've got this first layer in, I'll shift up to the bigger pillars and then slowly go around and add them, and you'll see they will nicely slot into the ground, so there's no gaps, so it looks like a properly supported structure. Great! It's that stage done. So next what you'll see me do is just add in where I left space for the watchtower. And I'll drop to the ground and make sure that it looks symmetrical enough on that side. That's perfect. See, what that does is it gives us a nice, not only a supported looking structure, so the visual aspect of it looks good, it also gives us a nice guide for where to place the walls when we're using the free placement with the pillar glitch. But next what I'm going to do is just get some of the fencing in along the back of the walkway. I think firstly it helps me just feel as if I'm achieving something, because things really start to slow down when you're pillar glitching walls. The more you watch me build and the more you watch me do these guides, you'll notice that this isn't my favourite job of settlement building, but it is so important because it's what gives the settlement such a finished look. It's what really makes it look as if someone's put some effort into making sure that this is a defendable position rather than something a bit more ramshackle. the Minuteman way. Now there will be some little foibles with all of these builds, some more than others, where you'll get little overlays of fences that are a bit clunky, but to me that just adds to some of the charm. Great, so now we're back to the wall placement. And again, it's just a slow process of using different pieces, different layers. I always give myself more room than I need, i.e. that I build the walls higher than you're going to need by quite some distance. You can always sink in with the pillar. It's annoying when you go to all of the trouble of doing a placement and realize that it looks as if it's floating and you have to do it all over again. So just give yourself lots of height. Then if you do, like there, I sort of overshot a little bit, just patch up and move on. There's no rules to this. The more you go, the more you add, the better it looks. And as much as I complain about it, it's worth doing. It ends up looking like a cool wall rather than just snapped wall. Snapped wall has nothing that depresses me more than seeing someone who's put a load of effort into a build and then just done a snapped wall all the way around it like a box. This is the way to go. The more random you get, the better it looks. I think if it was with a Minuteman build, I like to keep it fairly uniform, because obviously Minutemen are quite uniform and quite boring, but it's with a settlement that you're going to be more raider. Use anything you can. It's when you can get into the bus pieces, you can get into the articulated lorry backs, anything like that. And there you go. We have a complete wall. Now I think that definitely served the purpose of acting as a tutorial, so what I should have done is stop there and got back to the build, but what I actually did was fiddle around for another half hour or so and make it look like a cool little raider settlement. So there we go. And as I said at the start of this, there was nothing that I did with the Zimonja walls that didn't just use those techniques and those strategies. It was just a case of fitting into the environment and fitting into what was required for the build. You'll notice that what I've done is I've rug glitched in a load of junk walls on both sides in certain aspects in reverse manner, so that you've got the props facing towards you as you glitch them in, and that means it starts to look as if you've got bits of wood that's sort of propping up and keeping parts of the wall together. And then what you'll see next is I've already put a back door in, same principles as the tutorial, and also how I built the gatehouse in part 2. Alright then, let's crack on with something a bit more interesting. Let's get some guns on these walls. We'll start with the gatehouse, and first of all I'm going to build one of my painted scaffolding structures to help me get up there. Now, as with all aspects of the settlement building, what's really important for a great finished look is to be mindful of the theme. I mean, for this being a Minuteman outpost, what's important to me is a sense of the military, but also a sense of interconnectivity with the other Minuteman structures. I'll come back to that in a minute. The minute you'll see me, they should snap. Why they aren't snapping is infuriating. Now, I could remove the roof and try and do it the other way around and see if I can get them in and then put the roof back in, but I couldn't be bothered. So you can always just go back to manually placing stuff. But what that does is allow me to snap in and start getting my gun placements in. And then what should happen is I should be able to snap the next one. There you go. So that's fine. We now have gun placements. But to go back to what I was saying, it's the interconnectivity between, firstly, physically between structures, so we can think about communication aspects, trying to get things that look like radar posts in, etc., so they're communicating with other parts of the Commonwealth, but also the interconnectivity of the architectural psychology, which is, I don't know if that is a thing, but I've called it that, in that they look as if they've been designed and built by the same groups of people, so that they're the same fundamental look. Now, ever since I got these Enclave guns, I'm obsessed with them. I know that kind of goes against everything I've just said, but the Commonwealth doesn't know that they're Enclave guns. So what you'll see me do now is just a nice way that I like to get these wired up. Just make sure there's no complications when it comes to actually connecting them to the power sources. Also, I like the wires. I know there's the wireless glitch that helps you do concealed wiring and stuff like that, but I think that visually it looks better to have the wires. It adds a different texture. It's an art form in itself, and I think it would look unnatural without it. I don't know where anyone else lives, but where I live, there's wires everywhere. I know I live in Victorian Britain, and we don't have much modern infrastructure nowadays, but still, I think it looks cool. Right, even though realistically there's no need to have barbed wire on a roof. Because there's, you never know, you might get some over-eager raider climbing over the walls, but it's very unlikely. But still, I think, again, texturally it just looks great. I'm not a huge fan of these flat roofs. I think it worked for this build, but this is why you need to add the textures, because when you look at it from any other angle, it just looks as if there's nothing there. Wish it had some form of risen aspect. They are, for want of a better word, very flat. Now, I think I mentioned this a bit in part 1, but if you do like building military kind of defensive settlements, then buy the settlement ambush kit, because that's where all of the barbed wire comes from, etc. You also got towers and CCTV screens and different junk walls, etc. It's definitely one of the better value packs. I mean, a lot of the time I have bought packs, like for instance I bought the Halloween pack so I could get some string lights. I bought the Christmas pack for very much the same reason, and now have huge numbers of unwanted items to scroll through as a result. But the settlement ambush pack I think is a blind it. I think the vast majority of it is very useful. Cool. I think we're going to have a little look at it from the outside, see how we're getting on. It's looking good. A long way to go. Needs to get lit up. Needs to get regalia. Make it a bit more interesting. But for now, what we need is flags. Minutemen love flags. Now what you're going to see straight away, I think I go to about 10 times speed to get through all of the various miscellaneous items I now have because of buying everything in Creation Club. I don't have a problem spending on Creation Club because, to be honest, I got the game for free on PS Plus. There we go. Nice flags. Now, I was going to put in one of the settlement beacons there, but I realised in the background there's already one on there. So I went and got this groovy little enclave bit of kit again. I like that one because it actually moves, which it will when it gets power. It's looking good. Right, this is me trying to put some flags on the outside. Said regalia. Fighting against the 5-second threshold. Why 5 seconds, Bethesda? Why? There we go. Great. Nice looking gatehouse. I think this is just going to be me tidying up this, making sure that we're definitely finished, putting a bit of fencing in. As always, variation, variation. And then I think this is me trying to make sure that the support pillars for the gun towers on top now go all the way down. Yep. Beautiful. Great, let's crack on, get some other guns up. Now here what you're going to do is try to find somewhere that these snaps. Once you've got one to snap, as with on top of the gatehouse roof, you see this is a problematic. Sometimes they will snap into any piece of fencing, sometimes they won't snap into any of them. And it's really frustrating, but once you've found one, I can just build all the way along. And then immediately they'll all start snapping. Again, just sort of tricking out Bethesda's build system to get it to do what you want. It's difficult to put into a succinct passage all of the various ways that you trick the build system. I'll try and cover most of them as I go along, but it's practice. It's different every time. What works one time won't work the next time. That's the beauty of Bethesda. Again, I'm just using those power connectors, the nice tall ones, because when it comes to getting power to the guns, it's virtually impossible when they're elevated like that to get them to the guns themselves. So that just makes it nice and easy. And just getting some detail on top of these little covered areas. More barbed wire. This is my favourite part of building when it comes to actually doing the detail of the settlements. It's the point where the build goes from something that's quite boring, well, not boring, my builds are always amazing. We're going from something that's quite neutral and sterile into something that's got a lot of interest, and you can start getting your mindset into what would be going on, put yourself in the position of the settlers, so you start building what we'll be doing in the next video, which is we'll be building bars and building shops and building sleeping quarters and all the exciting things like that. It's also the point at which this can get out of hand. I have a very special build, which will not be a tutorial, to show you soon, which has taken, I believe, 70 hours now, and the majority of that has been detailing. It's another one that's almost broke the game. Okay, I'm ready to power up. So this will go through pretty quickly, because as much as it's very interesting, it takes quite a long time, so it's running quite quickly. But I'll go through some of the fundamentals. I believe that a conduit-to-conduit connection will cover 2 wall pieces per side and 2 floors, 1 floor up, two floors up, 2 floors down, potentially. Sometimes it doesn't work that well. In essence, as you'll see there, that height that I'm running there on that the main central building, that one loop around should cover the whole building. It's not an exact science, as with everything with the Bethesda build system, but that should cover the whole building for power. But we'll find out when we test it later. Again, I'll go back on my wiring rant, but there's ways and means of doing wiring that's a little less obvious, but I genuinely think that by the time you've wired up a whole settlement like this, the visual aspect of it, as well as the utility aspect of it, just looks really cool. Again, in some builds I'll just put wiring in where you don't actually need it, just because I think it adds a certain feel. As you see, I'll always go at that. I'll always try and stick to the corners because it sort of saves on build capacity. These are habits that were formed before I started doing the weapons glitch, and you could build very little because it is actually quite intensive. It does use quite a lot of the build limit wiring and power conduits, and getting around the corners is the way. And this is me trying to run the power up so I can eventually get across these walls and get to the guns. Nice handy green, and I fell through the greenhouse roof. I was going to say that's a nice handy use of the greenhouse as scaffolding, build scaffolding, but yeah, all of this randomized pieces with one of them's got a massive hole in. I think, if I remember correctly, doing the wiring, I fall through at least 4 times. Now, this is me obsessing over the fact that the power is still reading as red, and I thought at first it means I didn't have enough power. Oh, that made no sense to me, though, at the time, because 200 should have been ample for this settlement. And then I'm just going to start wiring everything up, because I just don't understand. I know why it is now, but I'm going to let you go along for the suspense ride. See if you can guess why it's still red. It really annoyed me. Even though I didn't want to wire up this settlement beacon, because as I said in a previous video, I never use settlement beacons. I use a different settlement as a settler farm. Sunshine Tidings, to be precise. But I wired that up and it's still red. So I just couldn't figure it out. So I believe I just crack on with wiring for a while. Yeah, the confusion. You can see the confusion. Now these upward facing conduits that I'm about to use here, the mini ones, not those ones, them ones, they have an issue in that the distance that they can cover is limited by the dip of the wiring, which is why you'll see it go red. There's a little handy trick that I think when I wire up the greenhouse is a way of doing it. It's not so easy to do when you're underneath. This is me being lazy. What I really should have done at this point is built a ladder and got on top of these buildings, but here we go. Covers that. I believe, yeah, here we go. So what you can do using these guys is if you just wire and then put another one in right next to it and then clip the wire and then just move them, and then obviously you'll see the threshold when it sort of dips too far. There we go. That's the second time I've fallen through the greenhouse. Or third. I've lost count. And there you go. Attached. There we go. I think I deliberately fell through this time. And then here we go. This is why the power has been reading red. There we go. Start the water up. And there we have it. I believe we have a fully wired settlement. So this is where what I'll do is this is what I'll call the rough lighting. It's a good way of getting the thing lit up, but also this is me testing that electricity covers the whole base more than anything. Usually, a lot of this will stay, but majority of it I'll switch around and change up for more interesting lighting options, etc., as you get more bespoke as to which part of the settlement is used for what aspect. But yeah, as I say, this is just a good way of testing that electricity is getting to everywhere that you require it. Very much a love-hatred relationship with those basket lights. I love them because I think visually they're cool. I think they're from the Far Harbor build kit. But unlike the yellow ones, which are the basic sort of wall lights, they struggle to be attached to anywhere. Like you'll see on pillars, you can put they just, I would love them to fit on the pillars, but they don't. There we go. Let there be light. I think, again, one of my favourite moments of any settlement is at this stage, where you light it up and it's the first time it gets dark, and you get to walk around and see how the lighting is everything. I mean, if you want a masterclass in lighting, go and have a look at my slog build, because that was me as a basic way of testing all forms of lighting effects and what can be done. Ranging from everything from fireworks down to fires, but lighting is everything. One of the things that pisses me off the most is that when the settlements just knock it on the head at 7 o'clock. It's like the bars stay open, but it's like I'd love to be able to do videos where all the shops were still active and everybody was still at work at night, because the lighting is so much cooler, but everyone just seems to potter around. Usually at the last leisure place you've built, there's a little tip thing for you, is that they seem to default to visiting the last thing you build, as you'll see on this settlement, which is probably a good tip to keep in mind actually, is build your bar last, but I don't, because it's very frustrating. I think it's very much the case of within my NUKAWORLD Red Rocket build, that I built this tiny little bar last, and that's where all 20 of the settlers go at night, as opposed to the wonderful internal bar that I built with loads of seating in places. They never go there, which is a frustration. A way to combat that is just to unbuild the bar and rebuild it again, but as you'll see, I have quite a complex way of building bars, so it's not something I really want to have to do. Now, speaking of, as I spoke earlier, of love-hate relationships, this is a Spotlight. Now, these are hidden within the Automatron pack. It's one of two things that you can build by discovering plans in the Mechanist's layer, in their sleeping quarters. If you walk around and explore there, there's two kind of folders, one of which I believe is just near a bedroom on a desk. One of them's all the way back in the workshop, and one of them's for this Spotlight, which I'm wiring up now, and the Spotlights are really cool, as you're about to see, after it takes me an eternity to get them powered up. But they have one major drawback. Let's have a little look at them before I bitch about them. There you go. I mean, how cool is that? So cool. Now, the problem is, every time you leave the settlement and come back, they'll glitch out and they won't work. So it's so frustrating. So what you have to do is go into build mode, just grab it and ungrab it, and it'll go back exactly where it was, and it'll start working again. But it is so annoying because they're so cool. Another build coming soon is that I've built a rather fancy castle build, and it's just when you've built about 8 of them around the outskirts of the thing, you have to go around and click on them all to get them to work. Every time you leave and go back to the settlement, it's quite frustrating. But this is again me just battling with the 5-second threshold system to get some lighting on the outside. It's all worth it in the end. There we go. See, lighting makes everything. So cool. That's great, and I think that's pretty much it for the lighting for now. We're going to have a little look around, a little tour around. As I say, this is one of my favourite parts of building a settlement. It's just getting a look at how it feels at night, where the light sort of illuminates everything. This is going to be a great vantage spot here. There we go. Basic lighting done. So, now we have light, we'll call it a day on this episode of How to Build Zimonja. Now we enter the end game and give the outpost a pulse by building the bar, the general store, the gun shop, and all the little individual elements that bring this place to life. There's going to be a huge number of build tricks and tips ahead, so please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. See you soon!